Hello, I'm Philip Duncan, and thank you for joining us for our April ClimateWatch update, brought to you in association with ruralweather.co.nz and our official business partnership with IBM. So the month ahead can be summed up with one word: chaotic. Very normal for this time of the year, and now that La Nina has gone, we're into the neutral area, and that means chaos, basically. Anything can be thrown at us. So that means a mixture of highs and lows, warm days and cold days. It's pretty much what you normally would expect as we go through the month of April. But we've got a lot of high pressure as well. This big high coming through for the first week, and way over here in the Indian Ocean is the next big high that's coming in after that. In between these highs, that's where you get an area of weakness, where you're most likely to get some warm northerlies, followed by a cold front, low pressure, and then maybe a colder southerly afterwards. So in between the highs is when we get that wet weather. Here's the example before the next high rolls in. Currently, as we kick off Monday, April 3rd, a bit of a southerly flow and a few showers around those eastern areas, which, by the way, you've had now for about a week because it was carrying on at the end of March as well. So let's take a look at where we're going as far as our climate driver is concerned. So La Nina has gone, and the Bureau of Meteorology in Australia saying that we're into the neutral zone now, as I just said. So that means there's no driving weather pattern. It's just the usual kind of autumn weather pattern that we'd get. And it looks like that as we go through to the start of winter as well. Now, as we get towards the end of winter, that arrow pointing a lot further into the El Nino area. Take a look at the model of all models. This shows you what the various computer models around the world, excluding New Zealand, unfortunately, but all the models around the world are showing. And you can see this trend very much strongly going into the El Nino zone, and that's by about spring this year, 2023. So that's worth keeping an eye on. It's not totally locked in, about a 50% confidence rate, which does sound a little bit like you're flipping a coin, but it's not. It means it's a moderate risk as we head towards spring. Let's take a look at the sea surface temperatures, courtesy of the Bureau of Meteorology. So up here where we measure La Nina up towards the tropics, things are changing. Not quite as hot as it was over here, or warmer than average, I should say. But look at the localized marine heat wave carrying on from about Tasmania over to the South Island. Well, around the South Island because it's the sea. Temperatures are well above normal. That's not related to La Nina. That's just simply a localized condition going on, and these big highs that are coming through won't be churning it up very much just yet. We need some big southerly storms to come through and mix in some colder water there. So for now, if you want to go for a swim in the South Island, it might be a little bit warmer than average in the sea. The Moana Project, great website, check them out, just Google them, you can find them. You can see here the current sea surface temperatures, so still very mild. April is only just a few weeks, or at this point we're only a couple of days as we recorded this, after March, and March is the peak of sea surface temperatures. That's when they're the warmest. So we're still seeing pretty warm conditions if you want to go for a swim, into the 20s still for the North Island, but it does drop down even despite the marine heat wave in the South Island. When you look in closer here, this is a much bigger picture for us locally, if that makes any sense. We're zooming in a bit more with this one from that previous page showing the sea surface temperatures anomaly. And what you're seeing here in the reds, how much warmer than average it is. And a lot of beaches, a lot of coastal parts of New Zealand are still warmer than average. The bulk of it around the South Island, but the North Island still certainly warmer than usual if you're taking a dip. That actually just helps keep up temperatures a bit more in coastal areas, reduces the chance of frosts overnight as well in those coastal zones. Here's a look at the forecast. So let's take a look and see what is shaping up in April as far as highs and lows are concerned. And we kick off the first week, obviously recorded here on the 3rd of April, but kicking off the first week of April with that southerly, which is fading out as the high comes in. So it's looking fairly dry, still a few showers around, but that high pressure zone coming through. And there's a good variety in here of, low pressure and high pressure, low pressure, high pressure. And that is expected to be the theme of April, a mixture of highs and lows coming through, but those highs are pretty strong, the ones that are coming in. Now here we are for the second week. This will be Easter Monday, and looks as though there's an area of low pressure here in the New Zealand zone. So things are changing a little bit next week, maybe a little bit this weekend as well. Nothing too stormy at this stage, but the low coming through next does look pretty big. Some big storms down here in the Southern Ocean, but also some very big highs in the Indian Ocean coming through still. So we are not yet done with big settled high pressure systems that will still bring summer-like weather. Cool mornings, but you could still be getting some pretty warm and hot afternoons depending on where you are. So as we kick off the Monday into the third week of April, still got that low pressure zone from the second week clearing through. This one though is a little bit different. They're all connected, all these lows that are coming in from week 2 and week 3. But the difference with this one is this low is potentially coming out of the subtropics. Now, the movement of this next high will make all the difference for this low as it drops southwards, because if the high comes in early, it bulldozes that low away and we don't get the setup that you're seeing here. But if the high stalls a little bit or even shrinks a little bit, then that subtropical low, not subtropical anymore, but is likely to be coming down from the subtropics, might bring in more rain to the North Island. So one to keep an eye on. This is what we're saying about chaotic. It's not just all coming through from the west in one clean pattern. There's a real variety of big highs, big lows, and still potentially some subtropical lows coming down from around sort of Tonga and south of Fiji. These are not tropical cyclones. At this stage, we're not expecting any more tropical cyclones coming down from our direct north, but still worth keeping an eye on because it's still that time of the year. You know, officially the cyclone season doesn't end until April the 30th, so we're still keeping a close eye on what goes on. So we could still be seeing the odd storm coming through, but it's important to note that generally speaking, we are expecting rainfall to be either average or slightly below average. Now that doesn't rule out some localized areas that could get a flood and go above that. But the general forecast of all of New Zealand, if you like, is showing that temperatures will be slightly above normal, rainfall potentially slightly below. So let's take a closer look at the rainfall. Now this is for the first week of April, basically from April 3rd through till about April 10. And what you're seeing here is plenty of that red and pink shading showing that drier than usual weather will carry on in the New Zealand area. Very wet out here. That's because you're seeing lots of low pressure zones coming through, and it's the sea, but that doesn't really make any difference to that. But you're still seeing rainfall out over the Tasman Sea being above normal with those lows kind of stalled, and also the marine heat wave. That'll be helping produce heavier rainfall if those lows are sitting out at sea. But for the very first week or the first 10 days of the month, most of the rain will be over here on the west coast where it should be. There'll be a little bit of wet weather over in the east and other showers as well. So it's not completely dry, but just generally seeing a drier pattern. So let's take a look at further out till April the 18th. Now you can start to see a bit more of the chaos factor that I was talking about. If you're colorblind, we've tried to put the arrows on here. You can go to our website and look at this in a bit more detail. But what we're showing you is some lumpy areas of rain coming through from these various low pressure zones. And if they stall a little bit, or if they move a little bit closer, then those rainfall totals jump up. But rainfall here, you know, in these areas shaded pink, that's 100 millimeters over the next 15 days. That's about normal for this time of the year, if not even a little bit below normal if there is no other rain this month. And then you head down to the South Island, parts of Canterbury, again, if these lows, like that subtropical low I just talked about, if it drifts a little bit closer, that could break this forecast. But for now, what we're seeing is the Canterbury Plains, South Canterbury and Otago not seeing a lot of rain, perhaps only a millimetre for some areas in South Canterbury. That might change, but that's the forecast as we recorded this, and potentially some heavier falls around the Nelson Ranges, although that is a very small blob to keep an eye on, but that's showing the potential of up to 200 millimetres that could be drawn in by perhaps a northerly wind and some slow moving rain. So it's a messy kind of setup. It's not very clear cut. There's no obvious big storm coming through. It's patchy, and that means we need to go out a little bit further, take a look at the IBM data, and they are suggesting for the month of April, when you take a look at the departure from normal, most places are about normal. It does look like it's in the yellow and gold zone, so leans a little bit drier, but we're only talking about 12 millimeters lower than average, which means really when you look at this legend here, anywhere from about where it's gold all the way over to where it's about green, that's still in the realms of normal rainfall. And you might get the odd localized flood, and other areas may be quite dry, but normal for this time of the year. We're not seeing anything in the big blues or the big reds that would worry us. You see that if you zoom out in other countries around the world. So still a chance of some localized downpours, but hopefully we're not seeing too much of a way in the way of the rain that we've been seeing over previous months. Let's have a look at the soil moisture anomaly thanks to the National Institute of Water and Atmospheric Research, a Crown-funded agency. You can see that rain from the previous month and even February still lingering around the North Island. So that's why the forecast for the north for being slightly drier than average is probably good. Even if it's just normal rainfall, that will still be what you want. And in the South Island though, the area that's the driest is one of the areas that may stay dry. So there are parts of Canterbury worth keeping an eye on, and Otago, and maybe even some parts of Southland in the east there that just might lean a bit drier over the next couple of months ahead. Finally, before I go, let's take a look at the general trend of temperatures, and it follows a pattern we've seen over previous months, but it has dropped down a little bit closer to normal again. Less than half a degree above average for northern areas, about half a degree for central areas, and getting up to 0.7 for the south there. And just like the rain map, the departure from normal rain map we just showed you, we're still pretty much in the realms of normal. It's not like it's off in the extreme, well over 1 degree above normal, up to the 4 degrees as you see there, nor is it way off the chart that way. So I think what we've been seeing over the last few months is slightly warmer than average, and that looks like it'll continue on as we go through the month of April. And that is all from me for our recent Climate Watch update. We'll be back again in a month, and we'll be taking a look obviously at the rest of the autumn season, but we'll also be taking a look at the start of winter. And we'll also be taking another look at El Nino. Where exactly is that likely to be kicking in and when? And we are expecting that to be, as I said earlier on, probably at the end of winter or the start of spring, but it's not locked in. It's what the computer modeling is saying at the moment. It's been in that trend for a few months now, but as we've learnt with this last La Nina event, things can take a lot longer than you expect. The previous La Nina took about 2 months longer than forecasters originally expected, and now we're predicting El Nino coming in maybe at the end of winter or start of spring, plus or minus a few months. So we'll keep you updated. Our next update coming out in 1 month. For more details, please visit ruralweather.co.nz. We're proud to be an IBM business partner. We will see you again in 1 month.